Jonathan, hey man.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jonathan, and I am a church planting resident here at the River. I've been here for about 2.5 months now, which is crazy. Maybe even longer. Time's flown by. I've just really enjoyed getting to be a part of the life of the church, and just like learning rhythms of ministry and learning how to do it practically, but also like experience a lot of things. But yeah, recently graduated from the University of Alabama. I promised Cliff I wouldn't say roll tide, but
yeah. You just did.
Yeah, I snuck it in there.
We just wanted to spend some time talking about church planting because you are a church planting resident, and we take church planting seriously. It's a high priority for our church, and so we want to know more about our church's vision to plant churches, and also about the residency. I know that there are people in our church that are curious about your time in the residency.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. Why do we believe as a church, the River Church, that church planting is an important part of our mission to multiply disciples and to spread the gospel? Why are multiplying healthy churches a part of that?
Definitely. I think there's a strong basis for it in Scripture. I think we see churches that plant churches all throughout, especially the book of Acts. You see, like really just in the book of Acts, you see like churches that aren't like necessarily mega churches. I mean, it was churches that were probably like smaller sized churches. They were house churches planting other house churches. And it was cool to see like God used that in a powerful way. He used churches to plant other churches. And you see like at the end of the Gospel of Matthew, you see Jesus' call to go and make disciples of all nations. Like we believe that like that is best accomplished through the church. It's churches that plant other churches. And then you can also see like Paul and Barnabas, if you're looking for a specific example of just them being like sent out from Antioch. So it was a church at Antioch sending them out to go plant other churches. So like we believe that like churches, like regardless of their size, have the ability to not only disciple and make disciples, but to send out people and groups of people to plant other churches so that discipleship and the gospel can spread throughout our city and throughout North America.
Yeah. So what's the reason for planting new churches as opposed to just serving the churches that are already there?
Yeah. I think there's like a misconception that like we already have enough churches. Right. But I was recently at a conference that was put on by the North American Mission Board. It was for their SEND network, which is like their network of church planters. And they were talking about just like the population growth in Atlanta alone, that over the next 25 years, that we'll need 2,500 churches to just keep up with population growth alone. That's not even like addressing the lostness that's already in our city.
Which seems impossible.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Apart from a move of God, it is impossible.
Right. Yeah.
But like looking at like the next 25 years, that's just to keep up with population growth. Like if I think about like where our church is situated, between like Decatur and Clarkston, even just like that doesn't even, those numbers don't even factor in those who don't know Jesus yet and who haven't just decided to follow him and apprentice under him.
Right. So we need more churches, and we need healthy churches.
Exactly. Yeah.
That preach the word.
Yeah, I think like healthy churches that are committed to discipleship is like how we'll reach this next generation. I think about people my age who like are just fresh out of college, who are moving to cities like Atlanta to just find work. Whether they're coming from a church background or an unchurched background, I think it's easy, like once you're out from your parents or even out of college where maybe there's a strong Christian community, it can be easy to lose the fire. I think the exciting thing about church planting is that you are a part of a world where you're like actively, like you need to make disciples and you need to like reach the lost. Otherwise, there's no church there anymore. So just like reaching the next generation through discipleship has been the strategy of every generation since Jesus walked the earth. And it seemed to have worked pretty well for the last 2,000 years. So it's exciting to be able to carry that work forward in a context like Atlanta.
Yeah. So if you didn't hear that, we believe that planting more healthy, gospel-focused, discipleship-focused churches are the way that we're going to reach our city. It's the way we're going to reach Atlanta. It's the way that we're going to reach our nation and the world. So our church planting focuses aren't just here in North America. They're actually like international with the IMB and the support that we give to a Lottie Moon Christmas offering, which is coming up
Yeah,
in December. And so plug for that.
definitely.
We just got the numbers actually. I think that the International Mission Board and NAM exceeded their goals,
Yeah,
their
praise God.
giving goals, and so not only are they fully funded, but even more. And that has happened every year, for however many years. It's been great. This denomination, the Southern Baptist Convention, has consistently proven that missions is its goal. That we value mission. So praise the Lord for that. So in terms of like the church planting residency that you are a part of here at our church, what do you think that you've learned during this first quarter in the residency? And go into some detail there, like what have you learned about ministry and leadership and yourself as a person?
Yeah. I think I've really enjoyed it. We were just reflecting the other day, kind of like how that first quarter went. And one of the things I think I noted that I really appreciated was just how, like, yes, there was a lot of like ministry practicum, like practical ministry experience of like, how do you lead communion? How do you write a sermon and deliver a sermon? How do you do youth ministry and stuff like that, or lead a small group? But equally, I've felt like really invested in. We've walked through Richard Foster's Celebration of Discipline. And that's just been like super life-giving for me. So like just learning what it looks like to be an emotionally and spiritually healthy leader, so that you can model that for others. In one of my seminary classes right now, it was like, how can you hope to give away what you don't have yourself? So like if knowing Jesus is knowing eternal life, and Jesus is offering life to the fullest, like that's a promise for here and now. And I appreciate that, like that's kind of played out in the residency. It's like, what does it look like to practice Sabbath, or what does it look like to just like meditate on Scripture and have your soul restored in like Psalm 23 language, so that you can be healthy first and foremost with your relationship with God, but also with others, and so that you can serve from a place of joy, rather than just like, I know sometimes you do have to grit your teeth and just do the hard thing, but also just like being formed into a person of love. And I feel like the first quarter is like, yes, there's a lot of ministry output, and that's wonderful. And I'm getting like lots of really wonderful experience that like I was hoping for. But equally, I felt like really invested in and discipled well. And I felt like there's like a steady stream of like inputs and outputs, so to speak. And I've just been super grateful for that.
Yeah, I noticed on the mission field that we encountered lots of different situations where we were having to ask ourselves hard questions and have an answer for those hard questions. Mm-hmm. So do you feel like so far you've had some of that where it's like, okay, I'm having to answer hard questions about Sabbath, about personal quiet time and Bible study, and so that was what the whole first quarter was about.
Yeah.
But do you feel like the residency now and is going to help you to answer some of those hard questions, so that now that you've been taught, you can go and teach others?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I think just getting to like work with you and Scott, just seeing you guys model that well, it has helped me to be like, so like the guys, like I'm thinking about like guys that like I'm in discipleship relationships with, it's like I'm inviting them, yes, like to follow Jesus, but I'm inviting them into like a whole like new way of living, right? And like I think that like it's been really good just to see a template of like what that looks like, how that plays out. Like I mean, I'm engaged, I'll be married next year. What that looks like in terms of like a familial context, like how am I like a healthy leader in terms of like my family, or my future family, and how would I be a healthy leader in like in my church, or even like in church leadership circles, like how can I like invest in like staff and people like that, and just seeing like how the gospel impacts all areas of ministry. I've really appreciated just kind of like learning like how that translates to, not necessarily, I think when people think of like pastoral ministry, that like getting up there and giving a 35-minute sermon on a Sunday, but just seeing that like it's so much more than that.
It impacts like every part of your life.
Yeah, like vocational ministry is kind of just like it's all of your life. It's not like necessarily like I clocked my 40 hours this week and I'm going home.
Right. What would you say is the most challenging part, or what's been the most stretching part of the residency so far?
Yeah, I think as I've been thinking about that question, I would love to. I think so much of like ministry is like being rooted in community and like being rooted in the community where you're serving. So I think I've been trying to just like learn, like we're in Decatur, but like Decatur's even like a really broad like construct. Like you could be like on the other side of 285 and maybe that's Decatur, or super far southward, North Decatur. And even then, like a lot of people who like are part of our church community are like commuting into Decatur. So I'm just trying to like...
And you move an inch,
yeah,
and you're in Stone Mountain.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. Or yeah. Clarkston, like that's a whole other world over there.
Right.
But I think it's just like I'm trying to understand, like, I don't know, I'm wanting to approach this like as a missionary, right? This is a whole other culture. Like it's not Tuscaloosa. It's definitely not Montana. Like it's like Georgia, Atlanta, and even inside perimeter Atlanta is like a whole other world. And I'm trying to like, I wouldn't say like I have any culture shock, but like I'm trying to understand like it's a new culture. Values are different. Just like the sports teams people root for, like the small talk people have. Like what are the things, like I'm trying to like treat it and like understand like how to properly contextualize the gospel. And right. It's not like as many degrees of contextualization as if I was in like Tajikistan or something like that. But just trying to like, there's like a little bit of a learning curve associated with being in a new place. Because like the things that like God is saying to a church in Tuscaloosa or in England or somewhere like that is different to what he's saying to the church in Decatur. So I wouldn't say necessarily anything like super challenging or anything like that or earth shattering. It's been a super joyful time.
Yet it'll come.
So far, it's just Q1 after all. But yeah, I think like I'm trying to like still like learn the area and learn just like what the area is about and like what are the things that people care deeply about, just so I can like care about those things too and speak into those things.
I feel like I've been challenged that you haven't felt really challenged yet by anything.
I might be doing kids ministry tonight. So
yeah.
But yeah.
So another question is how have you seen God at work, either in your own life or in the life of our church through this season of ministry? And I know it's only been 3 months. It's only the first quarter of your residency. So it hasn't been very long, but even in that time, like how have you seen God at work?
Yeah. I'll think of 2 examples, like one from like maybe ministry and community and then one in my own life. I think in terms of like ministry and community, I think from like day one, it was really cool. There's like a lot of guys in like the Decatur and Clarkston area who all like have a heart for like just serving Afghans and just like making sure, like helping them feel a part of the community and just being a good presence, right? And it was cool to see that like a lot of us just like kind of came together around the same time and were like, hey, there's a need here for maybe like a soccer club or something like that. Now, like all cards on the table, I don't think either of us are like super like soccer athletic, like those types of people, like the sports guys. But just like it was cool because there's just like a lot of people, God brought a lot of people together at the right time. People that like, I don't know, even 4 months ago, any of us really know each other.
And it seems like when things are going,
yeah,
like when something is actually started, it draws other people in.
Exactly.
It's almost, I wouldn't call it a black hole. That sounds negative. But
it
creates
momentum,
a gravity, right? There's a gravity there. And so I think it is amazing that you got to be a part of the idea, planning, and strategy of a new ministry at our church.
Exactly. Like day one, like we were like, in my very first residency meeting, we're like, okay, we're going to go to Chick-fil-A and like we're just going to talk about whatever we're going to talk about on our way to Chick-fil-A to go pick up like chicken sandwiches for this like first planning meeting. And we got the sandwiches and came back and we're like, okay, we're going to launch September 2nd, I think, or something like that.
Really quick.
Like super fast, within a couple of weeks, yeah.
Right.
And it was just like, what do we need to do to like make that happen? So we like got out like a sheet and we're like, okay, you do this and you do this and you do this. So just to see that move from like a prompting that maybe God put on all of our hearts to like ideation to just like implementation to just like now we have a soccer club that runs. And God's been kind to draw both boys and girls to that, which who would have thought like that's crazy.
So having been through that whole process, like what did you learn from that? Like, what was beneficial to you about being able to go from start to, idea to implementation?
Definitely. I think 2 things, just like learning just how like the Holy Spirit speaks. Just like sometimes those promptings can be our ideas, but sometimes when there's a bunch of people who are all followers of Jesus, who all have that prompting together and feel that collective burden, that most likely that's the Spirit of God like speaking to a community of people for a specific purpose at a specific time. So just like first seeing like what that looks like for like community-wide discernment, and like dreaming and like vision casting and all that. But then super practically getting 8 people who are all in ministry to do a thing together, to get schedules aligned, calendars aligned. Like that is a Herculean task.
Right.
So just, I appreciate just like the learning, like the administrative nuts and bolts of like, getting everybody onto the same page of like, here's how we create like a schedule and like a set of responsibilities. And here's how we have follow-up meetings, but not too many meetings, because like too many meetings are not super helpful to anybody.
Pointless.
Exactly.
Right.
Having the right number of meetings, which I think was like 1.5.
It really was. Yeah.
Yeah.
1.5 meetings. And
And
you
then
actually don't need to meet so much.
Yeah, I've learned that a lot too. But just like, just seeing like the actual like administrative side of just like, okay, God's given us this dream for our community, and here are the actual steps you usually need to take to put something like this into practice. So as I like look forward into the future and just like start to pray about like what God could have next for our church and the community around our church, just some ideas we've been having, just like kind of mapping what I learned from that experience onto like hopes and dreams for the future, and just holding that with open hands, of course, but just like knowing how to like practically step into that and like by God's grace making it happen.
Great. And I mean, you've already gone into some of this, but like, what are you excited about? Like, you have 3 more quarters left in the residency.
Yeah.
So what are you excited about over these next, several months?
Yeah, I think I'm really excited because I feel like in like this first quarter, just like I've really like enjoyed being a part of our church. Just having community here. It's like a super strong community, which I just was like from day one, everybody was so welcoming. And I feel like it's just been really wonderful to spend like the first quarter just investing in those relationships and being like, hey, these are brothers and sisters. Like I'm like laboring alongside for the sake of like the Great Commission and reaching the nations. So now knowing like the faces and people who care just as much about this place, you're like, okay, like these are my teammates here. Like, let's dream together. Like, let's work together. We have exciting events coming up in the life of our church. Like, how can we serve together? So like, I just think about like, we have Fall Festival in a few weeks coming up, and that's going to be super exciting just to be a blessing to our community and to like engage the people around us. I think about other ideas that we've had for the future, other ways of just like being a place of hospitality. I was reading a book recently that talks about like how like the number one way to overturn like belief structures is through hospitality, because like it uniquely engages people with like God's kindness and God's goodness. So just dreaming about like what that could look like. It's still kind of abstract, but just kind of like trying to, I'm excited to like take this like abstract dream and bring it out of the ether and down into like practicality, and being like, how can we use like, I don't know, meals and food and stuff like that to like bring people in to like the family of God.
When you imagine the kind of church you would like to plant one day, like what do you hope it'll look like?
Yeah.
And why?
That's a good question. I've tried to spend a little bit of time just like prayerfully dreaming about what that could look like. I think before this, I was a teacher at a Christian school. I taught 7th grade Bible and 8th grade world religions, and also weirdly kindergarten Bible. And it's really kind of like a crazy jump, because my first period was kindergarten Bible, and then I went to the 8th graders. And like, if you've been around any kids for any amount of time, that's super jarring. But all that to say, I learned a lot of really valuable lessons just about people who are like younger than me, but also like getting to like also serve in the college ministry I was a part of in Tuscaloosa. Just like I think that a lot of what this up and coming generation, people my age, people slightly older than me, are I think hungry for is just like an experiential like walk with Jesus. And I think that's best realized through discipleship. I think like taking like, we have like so many wonderful resources out there, things like the Bible Project and other like podcasts and sermons, and like the like most resources that Christians have had at any point in history are now available to us just on our smartphones. And that's a huge gift from God, but also in the words of like Uncle Ben from Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think that like I'm excited with the opportunity of trying to steward that well and create a church centered around discipleship. But it's like discipleship that leads to an experiential relationship with Jesus that like forms us more into the image of Christ and counterforms us away from culture, but for the sake of mission. So like it doesn't stop there, that like we're transformed through discipleship to Jesus into people of love, for the sake of like the nations. Because Atlanta like has almost every country represented here. And like that's one of my favorite things about the city. Like God calls us to go and make disciples of all nations. And I think for some people that is to go to the other corners of the world, and maybe that is what God has for me someday. But but also they're all here too. So just like discipleship for the sake of missions. And I think that like, however that looks in a way that's like contextually appropriate to our city, still trying to discern where that is and what that could be. But just a church centered around like experiential discipleship for the sake of missions is kind of like a loose like mission vision statement that I'm still like working with and figuring out what that is. But I think that that's like where I think my generation is headed. And just,
Yeah, so you already know this, I think, but just as a reminder, like our church earmarked funds for church planting residencies. So our church made a decision that instead of buying or paying for certain comforts that we would enjoy as a church, we took those funds and said, you know what, we think we can find a more God-honoring, like Christ-exalting missional way to spend this money. And so we chose to fund church planting residencies, to fund church planting work around our city, international missions, outreach, and missions even in the community in Clarkston. So I guess what message would you have for members of our church? So if you could speak to our church members from this, through this podcast, like what would you have to say to them?
Yeah. I think a couple of things, like I'm like personally grateful because like the generosity of our church just to allow me to be a part of the work here has allowed me to step into what I sense God calling me to do. That if you'd spent that on a toilet in the sanctuary or something like that.
Which would have been great.
Yeah, I mean, like, which would be, like, now that I'm here, I'm like, that toilet would have been great in the sanctuary. But, like, I think, like, Jesus is worth it, and I'm, like, personally grateful that I've benefited from it, but I don't think that, like, that blessing is ever meant to stop here, right? It's meant to, like, flow out. And I also don't think, like, I'm going to be the last church planting resident either, but I'm just, like, so grateful. And it's also super exciting now for us, like, as a church community to like think about and pray. We start praying for the next church planting resident to start like giving to the next church planting resident can come along and do like what God's calling them to do. But also just like, I think everybody has a responsibility to either be a goer or a sender. I don't know if those are actual, well, sender is a word, but so you're called to either like go to the nations or help equip and mobilize and send to the nations and probably also make disciples too. But this is just like a really exciting way to partner with the Great Commission work that's happening in Atlanta. Because I think Spurgeon had like this line, which Spurgeon's really bold, and I don't know if I could ever be that bold, but he's like, every Christian is either a missionary or an imposter. And I was like, that's bold. But like, I think that there's something to be said there. I think Jesus said that in more words at the end of Matthew.
Thank you, and look forward to having you around for the next 3 quarters.
I'm so excited.
Anyway.